Okay, today we're going to be talking about the head assembly for this robot project. And where should I start? Okay, let's move this body out of the way a little bit. So on this head assembly, I can't really assemble it until I paint it. So what I've done is I'm holding the ears and the top dome piece in with some black electrical tape at the moment, because you can see it's going to be a head splitter. So when it opens up, I want the ears and the top dome, which will be illuminated, along with 25 randomly flashing LEDs there. Now in these eye holes, there will be these translucent eyepieces glued in from the inside, and they will be lit via the flashing matrix of 5 by 5 25 LEDs going on in there. And there's 3 more LEDs provided for the ears and all that kind of stuff. I know that cameras don't like taking pictures of bright LEDs, so this probably won't show up well. Just show up as a blur. But maybe from the backside, maybe it show up better that way. But basically, I just took all of the LEDs. I used this as a method of holding them and soldered them on the top of the head. They're going to be inserted from the inside. So this was a jig to hold the LEDs, and I just soldered all the negative leads together so I'd have one common for the whole thing. Then all the positive leads, each one gets its own individual resistor. In this case, I'm using whatever I had laying around, anywhere from 430 ohms up to 500 and some odd ohms. Didn't really make any difference, as long as they would flash on the 4.5 volts 3 penlight batteries that the robot's going to have. And wanted to keep the current draw low. Maybe if I put a piece of white paper in front of them, maybe the camera would like that better. And I would like it better, except we just lost our power connection. I'm not sure which one. Oh, lost our ground right here. Okay. How does that show up? They're starting to randomize. So anyway, the idea here, and maybe we should demonstrate that next, is, I have a cam that lifts these pieces up, and those pieces come up, the cam's push through here, which will then push these doors open, and there are return torsion springs on here. So let me hold this in place. And I kind of have to keep my hand here on the front to hold it down, because I can't glue it down yet. So you can see with the cam action, we'll open the head up all the way. We'll see all the flashing lights and everything. Then they should slap shut. And then we should see the ears and eyes and top dome and all that going on. Now, of course, you can change the ratio by changing that cam down inside. In other words, if you wanted it to stay closed more, you could certainly have it do that. If you wanted it to open quicker, you would just make the ramp on the cam steeper. So that could be changed. Okay, so let's shut that off. So what's really going on here is I've got a couple of paper clips that I'm using as a axle right now. So let's just pull one of those paper clips out. And I'll show you, instead of bending these torsion springs this time, I actually purchased these torsion springs off eBay. You get a bag of like 30 of them, and the prices change every day. It's like $10 with free shipping. And the only modification I had to make to the torsion spring is I would grab one of the legs, with the needle nose pliers here, and then bend that so they're basically both straight. And when you insert them into the head, you want it inserted in such a way, so let's pretend this leg right here was bent straight down. you want it in such a way that when the head is opened, it's compressing the spring, not opening it like that. And there's the slot inside this headpiece. By the way, I print the halves like this with supports where they're needed. A little support around there, a little support there. Anyway, there's a slot in here where the end of the spring can go to keep it captive. And you can see how it fits there. And then you run the paper clip through. You can't leave that spring long like that, so I end up taking the nippers and cutting that off, so it ends up, you know, only being about yay long. And this other end of the spring is then going to go down into this slot on the side of the head. Let me pull this tape out and clear things up so you can actually see what this head looks like. So this headpiece is going to print as one piece like that. I put supports around this bottom, and I do it, just set it in there manually, and some supports around that upper hole up there. Other than that, it all just prints as one piece like that. So this side still has its spring on there. When I bring the spring through on the bottom, I go ahead and do a bend on it so that it bends in a little bit, so I don't have to worry about that slipping out. And here you can see how that spring goes up through the slot there. Now, you can bend these yourself. You don't have to buy them. You're just going to need a heavier gauge guitar string so that you can get enough pull back, you know, that it will stay. I can put a link to one of the springs, but you can't count on it being active, you know, from one day to the next. I'm going to move the camera over to the computer, so hang on. Hang on. So for example, let's turn this light off. Here is one, but the nice thing about the one, even if you just try to remember what they like to put them under, if you scroll down below, you'll find that there are lots and lots of sellers for these. And for example, when I looked at these yesterday, or the day before, these were $10. Now they're $11.14. So it would pay just to find, you know, what they're selling them under. 30-piece small torsion spring, 0.2 millimeter wide diameter, and then see who's got the best price with free shipping. That's $11.09 with free shipping right there. I think when I bought mine they were 10. So if you do some searching, you can find those torsion springs, which are handy to use for all kinds of things, at a reasonable price. Okay, I think we're back over here now. I can't really think of anything else on this to talk about. I guess in the next video, it'll be time for me to have painted the parts and done the final assembly, so that we can actually see this operate, hopefully, as one complete unit. And that's my next goal. Do a little bit of cleanup, do some painting, and do some final assembly, and I guess we'll have a short demo video.